there are families where it wasn't encouraged among your children to have wealthy friends. You know,
Right.
friends, if your son or daughter had, and they were of impressionable age, don't mix with very wealthy people or children of wealthy people. No, that's not, you wrong sets of values will come in. So from the childhood itself, it's ingrained that those who are from wealthy families are people without scruples. So that's the kind of training that comes in. Whereas if you see historically, culturally, you have Krishna Sudama friendships,
Correct.
you have stories Raja or Rank, which we've all grown up with. So there is a dissonance there. So I'm just wondering, if it was not part of our culture and heritage, where did that come in? When did it come in? This kind of values.
I think the post-British, environment was that we were so crippled in a variety of ways, right? We were in deep poverty, in terms of our identity, our civilizational identity. It was taken a sort of a hammering. So at various levels, we were sort of really, both mentally as well as societally, at a very low phase in terms of confidence, in terms of, what we are and things like that. So the expectation was that everything that's going to happen is going to be something wrong. So the security element of it somehow creeped in along with, some of the other tendencies over this period of time, where we always want security. And we want to move away from the sort of poverty cycle to reach some level of economic comfort. And the safest way to do it is what we were seeking, because of the past, that especially the recent past, which which we were subjugated to a variety of, both external threats as well as internal threats, and it seeped into society because we were extremely poor, and we had to come out of it. So I think that also played a role.
Has that conditioning, do you see it, because you're sitting in the US, do you see that conditioning withering away by India? You have an external perspective as compared to us who live here. So do you see that withering away, that kind of?
Definitely, I think, what I find is, especially over the last 10, 15 years, there is a definite change in the approach, or the mentality of a lot of the young people, right? The entire startup movement, the entire sort of embrace of Bharatiya ideas. I mean, let's take this book, right? For example, when I wrote Kautilyanomics, I had to wait for like 4 or 5 years for a publisher to say yes to it, because I didn't want to dilute the content and things like that. But the book really sold well. I mean, it became a national bestseller. But for someone who's not an established author, it was. But what I noticed is there's so much interest. I mean, there is so much interest on subjects like this, and this is a reflection of people trying, through sort of common people who are not political, who don't have any sort of, who are trying to find themselves, find their own identity. And I think gone is the past where whatever that, some white guy says that we have to, think is some, glorified truth. I think people are questioning far more. I think technology has played a very important role, because now consumption of information is, so much online available. So the entire prism of NCERT textbooks is gone, right? So most people consume information away from, podcast and things like that, right? I think democratization of information, that is one. And also the fact that, Bharat is being seen more and more as a consumer, as a central superpower, or superpower that's trying to, or a country that's becoming a superpower, one of the central players in the global game. And I think that makes a very important difference. Because when you are at the central of geopolitics, then what you represent defines what the rest of the world thinks about you. And when you provide solutions for the rest of the world, it again, gains more credence on what you were and what are some of the ideas that you were that made you what you are, right? Because you're seen as a successful, up and coming civilization, not a snake charming, poverty driven, sort of a civilization. So, from a Western point of view, or even from a sort of non-political Indian point of view, you are seen as doing something right? So then your ideas, your thinking takes center stage. So that's why my thinking is that a lot of these ideas that I talk about, these will be ideas in another 10, 15 years getting center stage. Because if you look at a lot of the issues, global issues, right? Climate change, sustainability, global peace, stability, wealth creation, all these things have lessons from our past, which we can really use and sort of showcase to the rest of the world how some of these things were done. Of course, not everything from the past is you want to follow, but definitely inspiration, right? I mean, if you take modern day capitalism itself, it is a sort of an inspiration from a Protestant ethic, post the French Revolution. Similarly, the Chinese, I mean, their way of dealing with both economics and society is inspired from their past. So unless we sort of seek this inspiration of the past, I think for it to be sustainable and for it to be sort of enhancing, I would say that is a very important sort of narrative that we need to first understand and then try to bring some of these elements which we can use in terms of either policy prescriptions or ideas which we can share with the rest of the world. I think Bharat's presence as upcoming global superpower makes a huge difference coming to the mind frame, and so I see that shift, and I see that if you take the say 15 to 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds today and compare them say 10, 15 years back, I think there's a significant difference. I mean, people are far more motivated to be in Bharat. People want to do a lot of things, and there is no taboo, there's no restriction. People, if you're really passionate about something, you go ahead and do it. And I see a change. I mean, for people who don't visit, I mean, who are not in sync with what's happening, probably it's a surprise. But for people who are sort of in the policy sort of space, I think it's quite evident that there are changes happening very fast.
Do subscribe to the ANI Clips channel to get shorter versions of this podcast. Click here to watch the full episode.